If that occurs, there is a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you may not be able to control, which in fact, paradoxically, will set you back, not only leading to some suffering and death that could be avoided, but could even set you back on the road to trying to get economic recovery, because it would almost turn the clock back.
And that was the warning to Congress yesterday from Dr. Anthony Fauci. Joining us now with more, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner. He's also a CNBC contributor, serves on the board of Illumina and Pfizer. But before that, I guess you'd said if you don't follow some of the guidelines that we're talking about, this could happen. When he was talking about the schools, opening them in the fall, the headline was opening them was a bridge too far. What he actually said was hoping to have a therapeutic or a vaccine to allow for a free opening of the schools in September is a bridge too far. And then he had to go back and qualify, saying that I'm not saying that it's not going to happen with lots of modifications and lots of safety measures to be put in. I'm not saying we're not going to open in the fall. So I don't know. Is it? I guess it's a lot of times, Scott, the news, if the house is not burning, it's not worth reporting. It just seems like a lot of times we seize on things that are the worst possible spin to put on everything, and I wish we wouldn't do that. I call it clickbait, on the internet, but it was still sobering, even with the qualifications from yesterday. Even for you, it was probably sobering. You've been pretty sober.
Well, I think he was clear enough about what he was saying with respect to the schools. It was a discussion about the therapeutics, and he said we weren't going to have a therapeutic in time to determine whether the schools were going to be open or closed. But he wasn't saying that schools weren't going to open in the fall. And in fact, I think we'll be in a position where we're going to give a try at opening schools, opening residential college campuses in the fall, because I'm hopeful that coming off of July and August, we're going to see some declines in cases in the summer. I think there will be a seasonal effect here, as we've said all along. But cases are going to go up as we reopen. Actually, when you look at the 2-week data, and I'll be putting this out later today, but when you look at the data nationally over the last 2 weeks, you're seeing some flattening across the country. And you're seeing the number of states that actually have expanding epidemics go down. So there are some hopeful signs across the country that the epidemic could be peaking. And certainly within the New York region, we know that's happening. They're showing sustained declines for a period of time now of more than 2 weeks. So there are some hopeful signs. Now, that said, as we reopen, cases are going to go up and hospitalizations will go up. The question is how much. But if you look at states like Florida and even Georgia to some extent, they reopened, and we haven't seen a sharp uptick in cases. We've seen a little bump, but we haven't seen a sharp uptick in cases. And so we'll see. I mean, you can make an optimistic case here as well as a pessimistic one. I would choose to make an optimistic one. I'm hopeful there's going to be a seasonal effect here. Now, we're not in great shape. We have a lot of infection across the country, but you are seeing some signs of slowing.
So what about therapeutics? How long does it take for a monoclonal or some type of antibody to use in conjunction with remdesivir or plasma or something like that? You can fast track that more quickly than a vaccine, can't you?
Yeah, the doctors, when you talk to them, I was on the phone with some doctors from Hopkins yesterday, they're very optimistic about convalescent plasma and maybe even using it prophylactically in maybe nursing home patients or people who are at high risk of contracting the infection. It's not very efficient. You need a lot of sick people around to get enough convalescent plasma, so that's not optimal. But I think, to your point, these therapeutic antibodies, which basically are the equivalent of taking the antibodies and manufacturing them at scale and then infusing them back into people, we should have those for the fall. They're going to be in the clinic in June by at least 3 companies, Vir Biotechnology, Regeneron, and Lilly. Amgen's a little further behind. But these things, if they work, they could be progressed very quickly. They could be available under an emergency use authorization in the fall because we largely understand the safety profile of these products. And so you're looking for preliminary evidence of benefit to try to make them available under an EUA, under an authorization in the setting of an emergency. So we could have these for the fall. That combined with remdesivir, combined with a very broad screening system that we could have in place. One of the headlines out of yesterday was that statement from Brett Giroir that they plan to have up to 10 million tests a week available in the fall. That's a realistic goal. I mean, they might be able to be conducting 10 million tests a week by September if you look at all the innovation that's going to be coming onto the market. So that's a very robust testing platform. So we should be in better shape. We're going to be facing risk going into the fall as this collides with flu season, but we're going to be in better shape as well.
I mean, Doctor, it'd be great to have 100% of the population immunized with a vaccine. That would be great. Herd immunity, that would be great. But what if you knew that there was a cocktail where you weren't going to die? And even if you got it bad, even if you're not one of the asymptomatic or one of the 85% of the people that don't have the horrific disease, what if you knew you could treat it with a monoclonal combined with remdesivir? That's a game changer. That would happen long before you immunize the entire population with a vaccine. And that's something you could start. You know, we won't know till we see the flash that says, you know, such and such company reports, you know, positive results on phase 1 or phase 2 safety. That can happen between now and the fall.
And it will happen. That will happen. We'll have therapeutics before you have a vaccine.
Good. And that's what if you take Kramer said that before. You take death off the table, it makes it a heck of a lot more less frightening, less anxiety,
right, and
everything else. I think Becky has a question, Scott.
Well, just in the same vein, Dr. Gottlieb, the anti-vaxxer movement, it seems like it's gotten much louder. A lot of people who have said they don't want this vaccine. They think the Gates Foundation is out to get them. And I just see it in more and more places. Do you worry about the number of people who won't take vaccines? Is that an issue?
I think we'll get enough people vaccinated that we'll achieve herd immunity. We'll probably achieve herd immunity, something like 50% of people being vaccinated. And remember, a lot of people have had this already as well by the time we get to a vaccine. So I'm not worried about it. There's going to be a portion of people who don't get vaccinated. Look, traditionally, we only vaccinate about 150 million people a year for the flu in the country. This year, the manufacturers made more flu vaccine. They made upwards of 200 million doses, anticipating that there's going to be increased demand for the flu vaccine, as well there should. People should go out and try to get the flu vaccine very early this year. But there's going to be people who don't get vaccinated for COVID-19, even after we have a vaccine. And the therapeutics, when they come to the market, aren't going to be foolproof. But what's going to happen is, hopefully, they're going to be effective enough when used in combination that we're going to see reductions in mortality and reductions in hospitalization and reductions in ICU stays. So it's going to take, to Joe's point, it's going to take some of the sting out of this disease and make it a more livable pathogen. Still something that, you know, we're going to be very worried about, but perhaps not as fearsome as it is right now because we really don't have effective therapeutics.